the kind of like sexual ascetics, right? They are the actual perverts, right? Like this thing that is totally normal, right? This thing that is totally healthy. Granted, you could have sex, you could eat food or whatever in totally unhealthy ways. This is true. But generally speaking, the thing itself is not the problem. And yet, right, you could have all these ascetics that by, denying these very basic features of themselves, they're actually, the true perverts in a kind of twisted way. The converse essentially of of someone that, spends their entire life, I don't know, in the swinger lifestyle or whatever. And just like, this is
they're
their
still
obsession.
basing a massive part of their life and their energy, let's be real, on avoiding that very thing. They're still making the thing the center part of the like sort of centerpiece of their lifestyle, because it's like it's much harder to just go your whole life deliberately avoiding all the situations in which you could possibly get embroiled in like some sort of be tempted to have sex or whatever, and be resisting this thing, than it is to just live a normal life and let these things play out as they will and just accept it or whatever.
Yeah, asceticism is a kind of like virtue signal that's just the converse of like what today are called maybe like sex nerds,
Yeah.
which are just like, it's just such a
It's the same kind of people too. It's the same kind of people.
Yeah,
like the same like ultimate personalities that you see, like the same nerdy kind of like it's you look at like the incel types, and like they have this need to sort of classify and like sort of categorize everything in exactly the same way as like the sex nerd types do.
Like it reminds me of how like recently I saw this tweet by this I don't know how to pronounce her name, Aella. She's like, I guess like the number one OnlyFans, like whatever, like sex worker.
Creator, yeah.
And anyway, related to the whole sex nerd thing, because recently she appeared in some other tweet where like Bret Weinstein and Heather Weinstein were like talking shit about her, in terms of like, why is she out there, like I think like producing this content and, talking about sexuality in a way where just totally upends our own understandings of sex and sexuality. And in some of and granted, like what they were saying was totally stupid and unwarranted. But then somebody to defend her showed up in the tweets and started talking about it. It was this very weird direction that made me think like, this is such a kind of like virtue signaling sex nerd. When she was like, this reminds me so much of like the couples looking for unicorns. And what that means is it's a male-female couple that is looking for a women to like, single women to fuck or whatever. And she was like, this reminds me of like the couples looking for unicorns that, you come up to them and you try to like gauge their small talk to see whether or not you want to hook up with them. And you see right away that everything is a red flag. And it's like, why would you even like bring up this totally unwarranted comment about your own sex life just to express the fact that you're a fucking sex nerd? It's just like, anyway. So,
and like, this is exactly like, they're the like useful idiots that then just end up proving the point, the conservatives, because they can turn around like, look at these perverts. They're unable to keep sex out of anything for 2 minutes and make a critique. And it's just like, they're like, oh yeah, it's not even a good comparison. Like, it's not even like a particularly good or like insightful metaphor or comparison.
Yeah. It's a terrible comparison because it's like you watch Heather Weinstein and Bret Weinstein, and they're such fucking squares. There's zero chance exactly that they have ever looked for a girl to like hook up with. Zero chance. There's no way that they're doing shit like that. There's no way that they're such fucking squares.
The point is, look, a small number of people can do what you're doing, Aella. And if they do, I'm not saying it will make civilization non-viable, but you are playing with the stuff that does run that risk. You're not the only one playing with the only set of things that put it at risk, but this is one of the things that puts it at risk. And so in any case, think about whether or not the people who are reacting to you are not just having a hissy fit, but in fact are trying to explain something that isn't easily explained, which is, when you do what you're doing, it becomes impossible for civilization to function in any way that it has ever functioned before.
And like to not see that, but to just like write your own narrative. It's anyway, just
it's kind of like, actually, just to say, it's like very like in a way kind of narcissistic or something. It's like you're unable to sort of like look at and criticize people for what they are, even if like saying even if you're saying what they are is something shit, it's like, at least if you're dealing them on their own terms.